Mr. John Barron of the Conservative Party, who has a special interest in foreign policy and foreign affairs. Good afternoon, John. Thank you for being with us.
Not at all.
I'd like to begin by asking a general question. Is there any particular area of the world or issue of foreign policy that you think in the next 5 years is going to particularly impact on the UK?
I think there are a number. I think Iran is one, Afghanistan obviously, but how the crisis in the Eurozone unfolds is going to be another, so we're almost full for choice.
Do you believe that Iran is alone in the Middle East in posing a threat, or do you believe that there is a threat to peace due to other actors, potentially Israel, potentially Pakistan?
I think there's a number of potential threats to peace in the Middle East. As you're probably aware, I have been one of those who've advocated dialogue with Iran, having opposed our intervention in Iraq, in Afghanistan and in Libya. And I do think that there have been opportunities missed on both sides in this dialogue with regards to Iran. And I think we've got to make sure that we base our foreign policy decisions on hard evidence. And the jury is still out whether a nuclear weapons program is being pursued within Iran. So I think it's one of those issues that we're going to be coming back to. And if I had to pick one as a potential destabilising influence in the Middle East, that would certainly be top of my list at the moment.
So thinking back a few years, we obviously have some parallels with North Korea developing a nuclear weapon, and the world is very much had to accommodate a nuclear North Korea in its plans and the way that it deals with things in that area of the world. What lessons would you think that we could learn from North Korea applying to Iran at this point in time?
Well, I think I wouldn't just restrict it to North Korea. I think we've got to look at the lessons of our recent interventions. For example, we went into Iraq. The government certainly believed at the time that Iraq had WMD, and it is clear now that they did not. And I think one of the key lessons from that episode is that you must base your foreign policy decisions on hard evidence. Now, the jury is still out as to whether Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. We saw the director of the CIA, General Perrott, actually in a Senate testimony made clear that he believed that Iran had not yet decided whether or not to make or head for a nuclear weapon. So I think we've got to base our policy discussions and decisions on hard evidence, and that's what one is trying to raise here in Parliament, the need to do that.
So the West has taken quite a hard line with Iran in terms of looking to impose sanctions, and indeed has made quite some heavy accusations against it. In contrast, it seems that Russia has taken a much softer approach. Do you believe that that's productive?
Well, I think if you look at across the spectrum of opinion, you'll get differences. Differences are quite significant. I mean, in the States, the red line seems to be weaponization. In Israel, it's enrichment, and in the UK, and perhaps Europe generally, it's somewhere in between. I think it's a spectrum of views where the red line is, and the best approach to take. What I and a few others here are advocating is that we have got to talk. We have got to keep the channels of communication open. Mistakes have been made by both sides in the past. You will remember after 9/11, Iran was one of the first to sympathize with the US about their predicament. That wasn't a popular line to take in the Middle East street generally. And what was their reward? Well, to be labelled as part of the axis of evil by President Bush. And that led directly to the removal of the reformist and moderate President Khatami. And likewise, Iran has made mistakes. You could argue rebuffing President Obama's initial advances. So mistakes have been made both sides. What we've got to try and do is keep the dialogue going, and certainly do what we can to encourage Israel to refrain from any thought of a military strike.
Thinking of recent events, Libya essentially under Muammar Gaddafi to normalise relationships with many Western nations was welcomed. Wouldn't say necessarily with open arms, but relatively speaking.
With purpose in the desert.
Yes. And then what eventually happened was that there was considerable support given by these same Western nations to overthrow the same people who came forward after abandoning their weapons program. Do you think that that could be sending a poor message to Iran that there's certainly no protection given to any country that does abandon weapons, and that having weapons may in fact be a better course of action?
Well, if you'll forgive me, you start from the premise that Iran has decided upon a course of nuclear arms. I question that. I want to see the evidence of that before really I go much further down that hypothetical road. When it comes to Libya, let us be clear. We intervened ostensibly to save the citizens of Benghazi. That may or may not be true. What I think is underestimated is the extent to which Gaddafi was having trouble taking the much smaller town of Misrata in the west at the time, and I do believe the Arab neighbours could have played a much more prominent role in putting in the air cover. And you could also argue, well, why were we taking the action we did in Libya when you look across the waters and in Bahrain, there was an autocratic leader putting down their own population. There seems to be a duplicity here in principle, and I think that we need to do more in the West to address that.
Bahrain, certainly the violence there, whilst continuing sporadically, I believe, has been at a much lower key than what happened in Libya. Do you think what happened in Libya has served as an example and a warning to other countries?
A warning in what respect?
That certainly violence against your own people will bring around a very, very much heightened risk of intervention from other powers.
Well, I think there's an element of pragmatism in all this. I mean, nobody likes to see violence against, a country's people by whomever, but I think we have got to be careful in the West in rushing into these interventions. I think we've got to have be very clear in why we're intervening, and have an element of consistency in the principles we apply, something I don't think we've necessarily